What's up, guys? Another video for my YouTube channel today to talk about Spain 1, Portugal 0. Cristiano Ronaldo is out of the World Cup officially. He didn't have a great game. When you look at the data, actually, Cristiano Ronaldo data. So the pass mark really poor, like only one carry, one successful carry that leads to a shot. The pass that he received didn't really have like a lot of passes that he can just, get into the box. Cristiano is really ready for score goals, but into the box when the pass is just made by him, just like in front of the goal, he can head it, he can get the header, or he can just make a pass to the net, but not really just Cristiano ready for do some dribbles and take some shots. Here is the heat map of Cristiano, really all over the place, not really in the box where you want to see him. Just one shot that could see the back the net. In the first half, like he just tried to, make it like kind of a bicycle, but not really a bicycle when he got a rebound, but not really good performance by Cristiano. He's not the player that will save Portugal, I have to say that, unfortunately. But when you look at the network pass, look at the network pass of the really similar. When you look at the tactics, actually is really similar. They both are teams that want to control the ball. They want to just have possession. But I think Spain was more in that sense. When you look at actually network pass, look at them, they were really controlling the ball in midfield. On average was really similar. You will see, look at the average position of the teams. They were almost both teams on the opposite field, both Portugal and also Spain. But when you look at the possession wise, Spain was having the possession more like 55% versus 45%, but both have players in the midfield like Vitinha on the Portugal side. They can control the ball very well. You can also name Cancelo, but on Spain you have Pedri, you have Rodri, you have Olmo, you have players that really can control the ball. I think Spain will overcome that, and that's why they have 55% in possession, but also like they almost did like 600 passes. They complete almost 500 passes versus 381 Portugal. Really, Spain controlling the ball. It was more about Spain game rather than Portugal. One mistake by Portugal, if you lose attention in just one play, that's why Spain take advantage. They scored a goal at the very end. It was nothing to do by Portugal. When you look at the defensive block, both teams had similar defensive block. Again, the tactics of both teams are very similar. Look at this defensive block from Spain on the right. The average position of the defensive block is very similar on both teams. Really, the tactics of both teams are very similar. When you look at the progressive carries and the progressive passes, when you see the story of the game, look at this Spain on the right. Progressive passes for Spain on the midfield, but also towards the right. Just looking for Lamine, but also looking at the progressive carries really on the center. And you could see this arrow, this dash arrow, Lamine right on the right. On the left, they were missing some carries. When you look at Portugal, when you compare, there was 20 progressive carries versus 32 on Spain. That's really, telling the story of this game. It was more about Spain rather than Portugal. When you look at the final third entries, was very similar. Look at this, 48 versus 48. There was no difference in the absolute number right there. But I think when you look at the Portugal, they were more towards the edge of the sideline on both sides, 46% versus 31 for the left side. Spain was trying to go more into the middle, 45% almost on the center. Again, the dashed lines are the carries versus the solid lines are the progressive passes, so by passing. When you look at the Sum 14, Portugal was less compared to Spain. This is where you want to put the ball when you want to just create a chance, right? So that's very important to look at. And it's also telling the story of the game, because when you look at the creating chances, and it's all about just creating one chance and scoring one goal, because that's the story of the game. When you just don't pay attention to just one play, and then is when you have to pay off, right? So look at this Spain change creating zone right here. This is the green, the fluorescent green is the pass for Minero just to score that goal, and that's it. That's the game. The game ended just with 1-0. No recovery for Portugal. There was no time. They tried to do a free crosses. When you look at the crosses, actually, it's nice to look at the crosses always, because that will tell you what the story of the game was about, especially for Portugal, because Portugal, they have Cristiano in the box, so you will imagine they will try to do some crosses to find him. This is one weapon that I would say that Portugal still have with Cristiano, other than he's a great striker. That's the Uzbekistan game, when you just cross a ball on the floor, right? So he can just push the ball towards the net. But when you look at the crosses, most of the crosses were coming from the right wing, especially the successful ones. Not really a lot of crosses from Spain. I would say Spain is not really a team that really want to cross the ball, especially up in the air. They really want to go towards the deep and just cross the ball towards the center box to find Oyarzabal or even Olmo, or a player that can just walk into the box, but not really finding someone that can just hit a header, for instance, like you could expect that from Portugal. Like really high turnovers from Spain. That's something that you could see because Spain is that team that want to control the ball and control the field and make that possession longer. When you look at the team dominating zone, the blue is Spain. They dominated most of the field as compared to Portugal, which is the red one. Really, that's the story of the game. There was not a big difference, such a big difference between one or the other, but it's just one mistake that leads Spain just to the final, just to the next round in the World Cup. I will say the other player just to highlight here is Pedro Neto. When you look at Pedro Neto, he was receiving a lot of passes on the right wing, and he was just trying some progressive carries, but really a lot of defensive actions for him. He had a great game. He had a great game overall. Complete player that can do, progressive passes. He can make some runs and do some progressive carries as well, but he can just dribble. He is a really, I would say, box to box on the line. He's not a midfielder box to box, but he's a guy that can just run on the line box to box and is really fast. I think he's the other player for just to highlight here on the game today. Really disappointing by Portugal. Cristiano has to go back home. Very unfortunate. But that's the World Cup. If you lose the game, if you just don't pay attention to just one play, and you are out of the World Cup. The last thing to show is just it's just more telling about the story of this game. Spain end zone, all the passes were coming here, right here, like 8%, 6%, 7%. If you do the sum, like 6, 12, 19, 27, 30%, more than 30% were right here, just right here in the midfield. This is where Spain was building the game. Just Pedri, Rodri, they were just building the game on the midfield. Olmo, Oyarzabal trying to play with Lamine on the right wing, just to try to find space. But Lamine was really controlled by the Portugal defense. There was not such a big difference between both teams, honestly. I think that both teams know each other very well. That's why it ended up to be like a very tight game. It ended up being resolved by just one mistake of the Portugal team that just bring them home, unfortunately, and disappointing for them. Anyway, if you like this video, just subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.